Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WNR Body Transformation Podcast. In today's podcast, I'm going to be covering, I'm just going to freestyle a little bit on this one, but is it easier or harder for people to get in shape in this day and age? And also, some of my worst dieting, training, and supplementation, and maybe steroid stories. Well, I've started doing steroids the right way. So, there's not much to talk about that. But before we just get started, I just want to put up the disclaimer that whatever I mention in this video is not medical advice. Whatever you want to do, please do it at your own risk. And yeah, I'm just some entertainer / educator on YouTube. Whatever you want to do, please get it checked with a physician, get it checked with a professional before you even think about doing anything stupid. So yeah. And before we just get started, feel free to like, drop a comment below, subscribe. It just helps me with the algorithm, as I'm just trying to do the right thing by you. So let's probably start off. Is it easier for people to get in shape in this day and age? Well, let me answer this question. But first, I'm just gonna take a sip of my stock. Just down with like a bit of a cold, right? But is it easy for people to get in shape in this day and age? The answer is it depends. It depends on what kind of person you are. In this day and age, basically, you got everything available to you. You got good quality food, you got poor quality food, you got research around what exactly works when it comes to building muscle and dropping body fat. And you have a lot of the right information out there on social media, because a lot of people structure their marketing content around delivering the right kind of information. Example, someone like me, right? And if that also doesn't work, well, sadly, a lot of well-functioning drugs and peptides and androgens are there on the market that obviously don't replace the hard work, but they facilitate you to do things a bit more easily. But the stupid thing that a lot of people do is they end up abusing it, and they end up becoming drug reliant instead of habit reliant. So for example, someone like me, I started testosterone replacement therapy not because my balls are not functioning, but mainly for bodybuilding function purposes, right? 10 years after training naturally. More of like way beyond that, more of like 13 years to be precise, right? And from which 7 years, more of like 8 years were like where I was like very meticulous, very, very meticulous. So the thing is, I made an informed decision, and instead of starting off high, I just replaced my physiological testosterone levels with an artificial hormone from the outside. Not artificial, biological, yet endogenously produced. But instead of my physiological testosterone levels fluctuating throughout the day, the supplementation of endogenous testosterone replacement therapy just keeps the testosterone levels far more stable, and that gives me like a bit of an edge. If I can get so much with so little, whilst doing the non-sexy bits, which I've been doing for the past 13 years, right? Now perhaps if I want to just jump into the enhanced territory instead of doing dumb mistakes like what bodybuilders do, starting off really, really high right from the start. It might take longer, but let me just start off slower. Let me just start off really, really slow, because I genuinely enjoy the journey. So yeah, there are like drugs out there. The quality of the drugs are actually really, really good these days, right? Back in the day, you had to get it through underground laboratories. You still get it through underground laboratories, but these days underground laboratories, I realize, like, if they want to keep their customers, they want to ensure that the purity of the products is actually well on point, right? You have the GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic, Mounjaro, retatrutide, right? These peptides actually help you suppress your appetite. Well, used in low and moderate doses, they don't really crush your appetite, but they actually reduce the food noise at the back of your head. So that can be used as a bit of a facilitator for you to do the hard work without crushing down your appetite. But most of the people abuse this by taking it in super, super high physiological amounts, which your body can't even handle, and that gives you a ton of side effects. Most of the people don't even have like a firm foundation of diets, right? You got applications these days that actually let you know what are your proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. What are the nutrients that you've eaten? Whether you actually need to have like a multivitamin or whether you don't need to have a multivitamin. The quality of the supplements like fish oils, zinc, magnesium is actually really, really quality these days. But like most of the people, right? I mean, it's one of the golden eras basically, right? It's the golden age of you getting fit right now. Right, fit, healthy. The healthcare is really, really good. Right, depends on which doctor you go to, but I mean, insurance, right? It's a big fraud. Health insurance is a big fraud, right? But there are many good doctors out there, but there are many bad doctors out there as well, right? Who just want your money. There are functional doctors out there who actually understand the value of these supplements, these peptides, and etc. So it is easier for the people who want to get it done, but it is also really difficult for people who don't want to get it done because they are far too distracted. They have access to more chemically engineered foods which are actually so addictive. And in fact, I heard this as a bit of a rumor. Before I talk a bit more about that, I just want to take like a bit of a sip. That was really, really good. Yeah, I heard this as a bit of a rumor that like food scientists, right, are being hired specifically to make the most addictive types of foods so that people get hooked, right? I mean, so for someone out there who's already got like really, really shit habits, right, it's just gonna make it worse for them because they don't want to change in the first place, and therefore they're digging their hole deeper, right? The quality of the machines in the gyms are really, really good these days. Back in the 70s, during Arnold's era, I mean, they had to do like 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 crunches before their workout just to get the abs, right? I mean, they still kept on doing the inefficient thing and made it work. So, yeah, I mean, what else? You got fitness trackers. You got trackers that actually track your sleep. So it is easy and it is hard at the same time for a lot of the people out there. There's a lot of clickbaity, wrong information out there, right? People have like stupid problems like issues, mental health issues which didn't even exist back in the day basically. So there are far too many weak people out there and there are far too many strong people out there. It's more of like a catch-22 situation. So here, that basically is my take on things, right? That's what today's environment is like, right? We are deterring from our basic needs. We're moving on to the advanced stuff and we're getting weaker and weaker by the day. I don't want to sound negative, but that's the reality. So yeah, but before I talk it a little bit further, I just want to have like another sip. Saffron actually really, really puts me in a really, really good mood. There's tons of research, by the way, that saffron extract has antidepressive effects. So you guys might want to look into that, right? It actually helps people slightly mimic the effects of SSRIs, which are like a selective class of drugs which inhibit the reuptake of serotonin in your brain, as a result of which that enhances your mood and is used as a bit of an antidepressant. But anyways, that's the topic for another day. So yeah, I mean, it is super easy these days for the person who actually wants to get in shape to get it done, and it is super difficult for the person whose head is stuck up his ass to not get it done. It's as simple as that. That's the moral of the story. The second thing, right? What are some of my worst training, nutrition, supplementation, and perhaps what else? Like steroid and peptide related stories. Let me start off with a nutritional one. When I first got into health and fitness, right, there was a lot of wrong information out there. Trainers would go like, oh, you want access to health and fitness, you gotta pay me. So back in the day, I would do anything to go and get fit. I would read the magazines, and I came across Arnold Schwarzenegger's New Modern Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. Right, that was easy 10 years ago. And when I found that book, I thought that I'd struck gold mine basically, because Arnold wrote in order for him to actually gain weight, he had to eat like 6 to 7 meals a day. And I was eating Arnold portions, right? Someone like a 60 kilo kid like me, whereas Arnold was something like 110 kilos, almost double the size, right? And I hated that food because I still had the taste buds of chocolates. I still had the receptors on my tongue which preferred chocolates, burgers, cheeseburgers, pizzas, pastas, all of the junk food that you possibly can imagine, right? So I would stick to the meals diligently. I would go out, force my mom to help me with the shopping, right? Prepare all the meals. And when I would cook it, it would taste so bland and boring. Well, now I actually love these kinds of foods because the taste buds of all of the junk is out of my mouth at the moment. So, that's good. This is over, so I'm going to be talking a bit more continuously, right? I prep those meals and I'd force myself to eat it. I'd legit force myself to eat it, right? I forced myself to eat it, and when the puke would rush down my throat all the way to my mouth, I'd probably force myself to swallow the puke back in. And it was absolutely disgusting, but hey, you gotta get it done, right? And when I would be in corporate settings, right, I'd pre-prep my meals and I'd legit go and eat in the washroom, right? While sitting on the commode, not while taking a shit, because clients would not fucking understand, right? And if I would pull in a meal, even though I'd feel pukish after that, it would be 10x easy for me to say no, right? Those are some of the horrible meal stories that I can tell you. Then when I first started bodybuilding, the first few years, for 6 months straight, I just ate chicken, broccoli and oats, right? And then it was a protocol written by like a roided up bodybuilder in the magazines that you gotta have like one massive cheat day. No, you gotta have like a cheat day where you can eat whatever you want. Little did I know that bodybuilder could stomach that kind of, starvation protocol. And right, not starvation protocol, but that extremely restrictive approach. And when he'd have a cheat day, he would, even though he'd eat a lot, but his body would be able to use those calories efficiently because he was heavy, he was metabolically really active. So what I'd probably do is I'd lose the weight, I'd feel miserable, I'd not be able to sleep because there was like no food in my diet, there was no salt, etc. Why the hell would I run away from salt? Right now, salt is my friend, right? And on the weekend, I'd probably wake up in the morning and I'd start my day with like 4 Snickers bars, right? That's like an easy 1600 calories. Easy. That's like the deficit calories of me right now in a given day, right? And for snacks, I would have like a nice large bowl of fries along with like a burger from the nearby cafeteria. My mouth is watering thinking about that. Then for lunch, I would order KFC, and for evenings, I would order like a Chinese fried rice, and for dinner, I would order like a nice little shawarma, 2 of them. More like 7,000 calories consumed in one day, and I'll force myself to eat it because I would always think that the food would run away, so I need to eat it. Then in the night, I would lay in bed with my heart rate like racing up, up, because your body is obviously trying to digest all those calories, but it cannot, right? And your metabolic rate is extremely active, but you've eaten way too much than what you burned. And next day, I'll wake up something like 2 kilos heavier, and it would take me like 2.5 weeks to get off all that weight and return back to square one. And this pattern repeated for like 8 fucking weeks, right? Till I realized like, okay, things are not working. Training related stories. When I first read Arnold Schwarzenegger's New Modern Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, his training protocol was so intense. Little did I know that in his book, he purposely forgot to add in his use of decadurabolin, right, which was a steroid which was used by the golden era bodybuilders back in the 70s, right? So even though my recovery was that of a like 40 kg Korean girl, right, with no muscle, a lot of fat, but I would go and train 6 days per week with each workout lasting for 6 hours. No, not 6 hours, 3 hours basically. And every set was taken to failure. Even the warm-up set was taken to failure. Right? I would do 6 to 10 reps, 5 sets on the bench press, do head failure, do a drop set, then do another further drop set, do another further drop set, till there was no weight on the bar. When the bar was empty, I'd go and do push-ups. I'd extend the sets. I'd hate working out, but then I would get it done. I'd be so sore that my desire for the gym and my sleep was so bad that I just couldn't do it. Then around that time, Muscle Farm on the bodybuilding.com forums was being advertised, and Arnold came up with his new product line, right? And I tried one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's pre-workouts. Little did I know, like, pre-workouts have an extremely high dose of caffeine, like something like 250 milligrams or 300 milligrams, and I took it around 8 p.m. immediately after my work day, way too close to my bedtime, and I was almost about to get an attack in the gym. Not an attack, but I was like extremely jittery. It was horrible, right? Then when I started putting on some muscle, and most of it was fat, right? In order to prove my macho-ness, me and my mom went to the supermarket, and there was a guy in the supermarket who was shouting at a man, and he suddenly slapped him in front of his wife. And the context was, to the man he was shouting to and to the man whom he slapped, basically, that man touched his wife's ass, basically. Well, his wife was not even that hot in the first place, but hey, desperate times, desperate measures, right? That's just a joke, right? You shouldn't do these things without consent. Just saying, right? You've got to be politically correct, right? And I started filling out on the t-shirts, right? As you can probably see, I hope these biceps are big enough for y'all. Well, they don't look big, right? And this always gets my blood boiling till date, that where the poor guy gets usually suppressed by the strong guy, right? So it looked like, I didn't know the context, right? It looked like the poor guy who touched the man's wife's ass, basically, was being suppressed by the stronger man. I didn't know that he touched the man's ass, so I went and told him, hey, why are you talking like that, etc., right? And he's like, you stay out of it. I'm like, how dare you, right? And then he's like, you want to fight? I'm like, yeah, I want to fight, right? And later I knew that the poor man actually touched the man's wife's ass, basically, and I went to apologize to him. Then what else? Yeah, I'd go and smoke 3 cigarettes before my workout. Well, not because of nicotine and its benefits, but because I was a smoker, and then I would I justify that habit because nicotine has got nootropic benefits, right? And I would have horrible workouts where I would just feel brain foggish, etc. But I didn't know why the hell was that happening. What else? Yeah, one day I forgot my logbook, right? The book in which I used to note down my weights and reps inside the gym, in my office. Like, I used to work in the corporate field back in the day, right? And I forgot it 2 times, and the office closed. I declined the steps all the way. I went to the office, thought I collected it, went down, almost forgot it again. Little did I know that I could probably just go and get it checked the next day in the office, because I returned back to the same place. But bodybuilding was so dear to me that I forgot it 2 more times that same day, and I climbed the steps. It was like 13 floors, and I finally got the book. I'm like, ah. Then what else? What else did I do? Right. Whenever I'd go out with friends, I would pack my tuna meals, and they would stink, and I'd eat it in their car. They'd all ridicule me because all my old friends, I'm not in touch with them right now, right? Because they all are out of shape and unhealthy, and I mean, you just move away from the circle. But I mean, I was doing all of the wrong things, but this explains that I'm dedicated, right? So I would pack broccoli before a night out. I'd be waiting outside a club, eating the stinky tuna and the broccoli, so that before I go inside the club and have a drink, and the drink would deplete the nutrients, etc., from my system, I'd end up not getting the cravings because the previous meal would be so heavy. And then my friends, like beautiful girls, etc., would be waiting outside the club, and they would go like, Yash, come on, you gotta hurry up. You can't eat this fucking meal before. What? I would do that. Then in India, right, I would go to my relative's house and I would tell my relatives, if you guys are gonna force feed me to eat, I'm not gonna come, which is utterly stupid. And then they go like, okay, what do you want to eat? Then I'd probably tell them like, I want my meals to be measured, and then they would measure it for me, which was such a dick move. You shouldn't be doing that. You gotta learn how to adapt things on the fly. Well, I learned from my mistakes. Then what else? Yeah, so I'd restrict myself so much that I'd end up binging like really, really bad. When I did my photo shoot for the first time, and when I got in like okay shape for the first time, like something like 7 years ago, 6 years ago, immediately after the photo shoot, right, I went to my car and I binged 6 times by stopping at 6 different petrol pumps, and then I came back home and I binged further. It took me 6 months to drop those 13 kilos, but I ended up putting on those 10 kilos in something like, how many weeks? 2 weeks, right, which for someone my size is. Then what else? Yeah, these are my, I can go on and on, like, but these are what I can probably remember, right? Training mistakes. Training was pretty good, right, because I learned from my mistakes on training in the first 2 years of training. And then one day I went to a gym. There was a really, really good gym in Dubai. I bunked my university, ended up getting a free day pass, just wanted to check out the equipment of that particular gym. And I went to the bodybuilder in the washroom and I said, like, hey, listen, man, I'm just on a bit of a budget, right? But you got a really, really sick physique, man. Like, can you tell me some good books, etc., for me to read so that I can get my head straight? He suggested me Brad Schoenfield's The Max Muscle Plan, which actually made a lot of sense to me. But it was not hot growing up because Brad Schoenfield was a sports scientist. But now I actually learn more from sports scientists rather than bros and bodybuilders who don't know their shit, right? And I read that book. It didn't appeal to me, but I implemented it all, and that fixed my training habits. It didn't fix my nutritional habits. Then, before I joined Ultimate Performance, which is amongst the world's well-reputed gyms for transforming general population clients, right? Not bodybuilders and all of that, not body composition clients. It's general population clients. That's their main expertise, basically. They help them improve muscle and drop body fat, improve their body composition, right? So that's where I really, really learned, but my mindset was not in the right place. And around that time, I would do extreme starvation diets with the right principles. So 1,000 calories, 1,100 calories. And I would squeeze in junk within my diet because if it fits your macros, right? By then I knew enough, and I would go into analysis paralysis. And then I would have a binge, and I binged badly, like really, really badly. But this was around the time when I knew the right thing. What else? Yeah, but around this time, training was good. Training was really, really good. I actually got really freaking strong. And then once per month, we'd have like team trainings where all the colleagues would actually come and train together in the gym to ensure like there's that bond building. So there's like a really, really hot girl, right? As like one of her colleagues. And we were training glutes and hamstrings, and one of the exercises was Romanian deadlifts. She was lifting 100 kilos, and she was taller than me. And to impress her, I ended up lifting 120 kilos. I'm shorter than her. I don't have a lot of muscle compared to her. And I was fatter than her. And I ended up getting a slip disc, which is really stupid. So now, these days, I've learned how to live within my own capacities. Simple as that, right? Stick within your own fucking lane. Then, from there onwards, training was pretty smooth sailing. The change happened when I actually hired my first coach, who was not actually that great, but he did put me in the right track. And around that time, I really fell in love with bodybuilding. Really fell in love with bodybuilding, but I was not that disciplined on the diet end. So, but I was disciplined. Like when it came for a photo shoot, I would do it. When it came to traveling, I would do it. No, I'd fuck around on travel. But when I was in Dubai, I was very disciplined with the diet. Very disciplined with the diet, right? With my first coach, basically, right? I was just not disciplined when I'd travel. That's when I'd fuck around. But at that time, I got into sick shape, right? Not sick shape, now that I look back at it. Okay shape. I was at like 10% body fat at my second photo shoot. Now I'm at like 4% on calipers, which might translate at something like 6% in reality. But anyways, right? Around this time, I would constantly tell him, okay, can we change the program? Can we change the program? With my current coach, right, who's fucking great, by the way. Shout out to Matt from Physique Collective, right? I don't mention coaches' names over here because obviously for my business purposes, but this guy is a bloody great coach when it comes to coaching bodybuilders and other personal trainers, by the way. So, been working with him for the past year and a half. In the past year and a half, like my relationship with bodybuilding has changed. Like I barely slipped off my diet. He introduced me on the right way to use supplements, right way to use steroids, right? One story that I can recall at the back of my head is in 11 months after dieting naturally whilst being natural, there was a lot of food noise at the back of my head, and I'd keep asking him, when can I have chocolate? When can I have chocolate? He's like, listen, you gotta dig in fucking deeper. If you're gonna keep on talking about it, either you hop on a GLP-1 or just suck it up, right? And around this time, I wanted to make the change. Not that I hopped on a GLP-1 because someone like me is weak or something. Like, no, I'm pretty thick skin. I went from like 30% body fat all the way down to something like 9% body fat naturally without any GLP-1s. But then I wanted to shift the course of my business from like just coaching like weight loss and general population clients who don't want to change in the first place. Well, some of them want to change, most of them don't want to do, sadly, to more of like the bodybuilding side of things. So I was like, okay, if I try GLP-1, I mean, in the lowest possible dose, less than the clinical dose, it's not going to make any difference. But I get the injecting experience of it, and I can make like a deep dive YouTube video on it, which is where Pandora's box opened. So I went up to 0.75 milligrams, split into 3 0.25 milligram doses 3 times per week, and I don't feel anything. There's just the food noise at the back of my head slightly reduced, but the appetite was still raging high. Then I got impatient and I just took 0.25 milligrams every day from Monday to Thursday the second week. And on Wednesday, it kicked in like a motherfucker, right? I could feel my skin burning. I was like lying in bed with my heart rate racing, but I was bloated as hell. I just couldn't explain it basically. And yeah, I immediately messaged my coach that night, right? Like, listen mate, this is what I feel. Like cap it at 1 milligram basically, right? And because that's your individual response rate, whereas in the clinical dose it was something like 2 milligrams. So then I adapted to it pretty quickly. Well, I've adapted to testosterone replacement therapy pretty quickly as well. One of the things is these days when I just randomly talk to like women in the gym, like the second thought that pops at the back of my head is about sex. Whereas previously without TRT it would be something like the 5th or 6th basically, but it would still be there, right, whilst I was in diet. So yeah, these are just like some of my horrible stories, but I'm soon going to be experimenting more. So if you guys want to if you guys want to know more, feel free to stay tuned on my journey. Also next week I'm going to be getting my blood work done, and I'm going to be documenting my journey on 5 weeks of being on testosterone replacement therapy. I added in a couple of new compounds around health, right? But the temptation to take more is always there. It's so high, but I want to take it as slow as possible, because if I take it as slow as possible and slowly and steadily titrate up things over something like 9 months or like a year or so, and or even 2 years or 3 years basically, I accumulated a lot of muscle. Barely any of that bleeds out of the muscle. That doesn't give me any side effects, as a result of which things are going to be so good. So yeah, I mean, people, if you found this useful, feel free to like, drop a comment for the algorithm below, and just subscribe. It just really, really helps me. And if you're interested in coaching, if you're interested to drop body fat, build muscle, then all you got to do is fill in the application form below. If you want to optimize your hormones, if you want to fix your health, right, all you got to do is fill in the application form below, and we're gonna, or if you just even want to have like a consultation call, fill in the application form below. Have a nice one. Take care.